The only obstacles they have are the things that, for the monks, are not permitted in the Vinaya, the rules. And those things are for the monk, they're the restraint that the monk has to have if he can remain a monk. Whereas the lay people don't have that restraint. But otherwise there's no difference. There's no particular obstacle there. I mean, after all monks have been lay people before, and they don't suddenly get a removal of the obstacle when they become monks. Person becomes a monk, they put on the robes, they go through the ordination ceremony. They've still got their kilesas just the same. They're still there. They're still carried with them. And they're the obstacle, really. I mean, the monks then have a set of rules, and they must try and train themselves in those rules. And that helps them to overcome these kilesas. There's really no reason why the lay person can't practice rules like that either. They can. But it's up to them. And I mean, some monks do practice the rules and some don't. This is what it comes to. There's nothing special in the becoming of a monk which removes an obstacle there. For me, really the main reason for becoming a monk is that it's a mode of life which is accepted in society, where the monk can live and do whatever work he does in the sangha without having to bother about money and the making of money, and without having to get himself involved in all the, what we might call, the mess of the world. So that he's got the freedom to practice and to train himself. How well he actually uses that time is up to him, and possibly his teacher as well. But there's no special obstacles. Anymore. I would say in either case it's good, provided when the things are in your mind, one is mindful of them and watchful. If you're aware of them, if the mind's sort of full of whirling thoughts, and you can watch them, that's quite valuable. The main trouble is one tends to get caught up in them. You understand that, Cole? If one gets caught up in these thoughts, one becomes involved in them, and when one's involved in them, the thoughts take over. They take over. One's no longer just watching them. And if they go like that, then they're not good. That's not good. But if one can sort of sit and watch them, so to speak, one remains separate, and the mindfulness is there, and you're watching these thoughts. That's very good. You can learn a great deal, and it will probably quell the thoughts too.
I must have to mindfulness.
Yeah.
And look at the thought
if you can do that, yes, that's the right thing. You'll find, I think, if you do that they stop very quickly.
Sometimes I can stop immediately, but sometimes I let it go, and then I use everything in sankhara or something, and then I did return. And not serious so much about that.
That's all right. It's okay. Another thing you can do is, when thoughts arise like that, if you can question where do they come from? Where do they arise from? What is giving rise to these thoughts? And look inside yourself and see. The old saying is that Rome was not built in a day. And in the same way, the practice is something one has to do steadily and gradually. And if one does it right, one gets the results. They come. It may take some time, and how long it takes depends on the effort and what one's kilesas are. But if one practices, the practice will give rise to the right results. As long as one's doing it right, that is. One shouldn't think in terms of, oh, I'm no good at practice, I can't do it. Because those thoughts come from the kilesas also. And one must start to look and see what these kilesas are, how they arise. They're very important. They're the enemy.
Ajahn, you often use the word kilesas.
Yeah.
I understand that this is the sankhara.
No, sankhara, not the same. No. Yeah, it's quite different. Sankhara has two meanings, really. Sankhara in the external meaning means the parts that make up something. You have a motor car. The bits and pieces that make it up are the sankharas. And everything is made up of sankharas. The other meaning of sankharas is the thoughts and the how do you translate pungtang? It's the sort of developing and thinking, starting off as one theme, and then building up into all sorts of things. That's also the process of the sankharas. Sankharas forming up things like that. The first one is more external. Sankharas, you can talk about the sankharas of the body, bits and pieces that make it up. Whereas sankhara kanda means the mental process of thinking and the way it proliferates all the time. As far as the kilesas are concerned, the kilesas, in their essence, they mean ignorance which has given rise to greed, hate, and delusion. And that's the basis of them. That proliferates out into a whole lot of other things, like envy, stinginess, worry, conceit, hubris, and so on, all these sort of other things, which are just parts or ways and manners of the basic kilesas. And the kilesas are not in the khandhas, in the groups that make up body and mind. They're fundamentally in what we call the citta. The citta is the the true essence of oneself, one's true nature. Difficult word to define.
One view, I think the sankhara was the action of the feeling, and then comes up greed and aversion. But I would say it's not the same. It's a very different process.
Yes, when the greed and aversion comes out, that comes because of the kilesas. The kilesas are the operative factor there, and the kilesas come up mainly due to the main kilesa of self. The feeling arises, which is really a feeling of loss of self. Then there's a scrabble to get back up and re-establish self. It's like the idol has been knocked down a bit, and then it must work hard to get back again, and so it starts blaming everyone else and sort of criticizing and doing all sorts of things like that, trying to get back up again. And that's the wrong way. One shouldn't do it. The right way is, when that unpleasant feeling arises, to accept it and realize this is my own fault. I've done this is because of my past karma, because I've done it in the past, and that's coming up now, coming back on me, which is the way of karma. If it's bad karma, it comes back on one, and one has to accept it. By accepting it, you clear the balance sheet.
You mentioned citta now, it's one's true essence. Like yesterday, when you were saying, you were mentioning like the pure citta is non-dual reality, like independent from consciousness and the other khandhas. At that level, would that mean then that like citta then is only one rather than manifold, or would you still talk about individual cittas?
Individual or many cease to have any meaning at that level. It's gone beyond speech, beyond concepts. And all you can call it is emptiness. It means empty of everything that we know here, everything in the world. But it's reality. You get the odd proposition that existence is impermanence. Everything in existence is impermanent. It's changing the whole time. Because of that, what exists is unreal. Because reality means permanence. It remains the same thing, whatever that is. And reality doesn't exist. Again, existence is unreal, but reality doesn't exist. You work it out.
That context, I also remember yesterday you said, like in other religions, they often find they have the samadhi aspect, but the pañña aspect is missing or lacking.
It's not entirely missing, but they don't want you to go too far, because you might find out things which they don't like.
I wonder whether in your own experience, either like personally or through your reading, did you feel you ever came across searches or exponents of other paths who you would feel they might have come across a genuine insight into the nature of reality? Or
Oh yes, I would say in the Christian tradition there are people who may have become enlightened, but I would suspect that their enlightenment depended on their past karma, what they'd done in their past lives, maybe as Buddhists. Very likely.
Rather like inspired of the doctrine.
Yeah. Yes, true. I mean, Meister Eckhart, he's a remarkable person, and one can't say he was Arahant, one doesn't know. But he did rather come up against the church. They didn't like him very much.
Yeah, it's odd about him.
What's your general view of Mahayana tradition?
Well, it's a mishmash of all sorts of things. Some very good, some not so good, let's say. The teaching is there in Mahayana, in some of the schools of Mahayana. And I mean, after all, Mahayana is not just one thing. It's a bit like Hinduism. It covers a whole heap of things. And in those there are very good teachings. I mean, the Lankavatara Sutra, which teaches the what they call the mind-only theory, and that's perfectly valid. It's perfectly a reasonable doctrine. And it's there in Theravada too. The Madhyamika ideas, they're certainly there, because I mean they go in for emptiness. The only thing is, I feel with the Madhyamika they try to sort of deal with everything in making out that everything is empty, and even that the emptiness is empty, and until in the end you sort of feel, well, why the hell are they talking about it? But certainly there's very good teaching in it, and there are some that are not so good.
Teaching of everything is emptiness strikes me similar to what you were saying last night. We learned last night how you would investigate something like Sutta 2.
Yeah.
As basically everything being out there being 99% space.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Activity.
Yeah. Yes, it's what, really speaking, we can say that things are there. Everything exists. But what does everything exist mean? It means that the five senses exist, or the six with the mind. And what we talk about existence is when the senses see something, we say, oh, it's there. Or you feel it, you say it's there. But this sort of existence is something which is illusory, simply because those things that are there are changing all the time. And when we say, oh, it's the same as it was yesterday, what we mean is what I see now conforms to what I remember of what I saw yesterday. So it's memory that's telling you that it's real. Whereas in fact it's not the same thing. It's change. Because of that you can say all existence is unreal. You can't get any entity in it at all. When you want to go to what is real, there's no change. Because there's no change, it can't exist. It can't be known. And how can you know space? You can't chop it into lumps and say here's a bit of space. You can only relate space to objects. And you define space by objects that are in space. The space itself is meaningless to one. I think we're going to have a serenade tonight.
I've heard a couple of teachers explain that the forces of attraction and repulsion of atoms can also be determined as dukkha. I don't know if
I don't know, I've never felt the force of attraction and repulsion of atoms. I know the force of attraction of my finger to something, and the repulsion of my finger, but as far as the atoms in this are concerned, I don't know. No, one must realize atoms and things of that sort. These are the way of science. These are the explanations of science. And they explain how these things work. And all these explanations are mental make-ups. And they're mental make-ups that are tested and found to support the mental make-ups. In other words, what they do is they have some idea of how this gives rise to that. And then they test it. They say, oh yes, it does. So okay, now we have a theory here that it's because of the atoms doing this and that. And they think that, then they say, okay, that's the theory for that. But then they find it doesn't work somewhere else, so they have to change it a bit. And then they find that doesn't work, so they have to change it a bit more until they have to chuck that theory out and get some other one. This is the way of science all the time. It's a sort of growing method of learning to understand the world in terms of one's own mind. You can't understand the world outside because you don't know it. You can't contact it. What is the world outside? It's just seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and touching. That's all. And we assume that they're made of atoms because that theory seems to work well. But we don't know really.
we would impregnate inanimate objects with the same dynamic of suffering that the mind undergoes, like craving and with the attraction and repulsion on the inanimate
Oh,
objects.
if one wants to say dukkha in other things, no, that's nonsense. The only thing that really has dukkha is the citta. Where there's no citta, there's no life. Citta is the essence. That's the thing that matters.
There's no citta, there's no life. Does that mean plants have citta?
Might say not. The Buddha said that we shouldn't destroy vegetation because the common people suppose that they have one principled life. He never said that they were alive or that it was life. The putting it in a modern view, they're much more a matter of reaction, process of reaction.
You wouldn't call them alive.
Not in a true sense, no. In a true sense, I would say the only thing that's alive is the citta.
Does that mean the Dhamma's alive then? Like if it's pure citta, if we thought it was Buddha Dhamma Sangha, right? I mean the citta's purified, purified, and that's the only thing that's alive. That means the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha are alive because they're pure as well, and they attain the pure state of citta. They're the only ones that are really alive.
No, it's not purity here. It's the nature of things, and the Dhamma, it depends what one means by Dhamma, because there's many meanings to that. The ultimate Dhamma, what they call the primordial Dhamma, that is citta, really. It's the same thing. But then the primordial Dhamma, how do you catch it? You've got no handles. There's nothing you can hold on to.
Citta only in human beings?
No, it's in animals, citta. How far down the scale it goes, I don't know. But in animals that have volition, there is citta. I can say for certainty, in dogs there's citta, in cats there's citta, in tigers they've got citta, elephants, snakes. Probably, yes. Although whether that goes down to bacteria and things, I don't know. I'm not sure there. Maybe not. Frankly, whether bacteria have citta or not is no concern of ours. The slime mold. It's rather interesting, that one here. I think it's in not California, Oregon. I think it's there. There's this mold which grows on trees and things, and it has to have moisture. If the moisture, if this food dies away, then this mold forms itself together into a worm, and then it goes off and comes to another log or something that's suitable, and then it spreads out as organisms, separate organisms. It's true. Well, I don't know what you'd call it. It's spores of mold, sort of mold, individual bits of mold here. And when there's no water left or no food left, it all joins itself together, and forms itself together into a worm. And this worm goes along till it finds.
Might have a theory about that. I heard a story that the Dalai Lama in early years was in England getting interviewed in a radio talk show, and the host wasn't very respectful to the Dalai Lama or to Buddhism. And so he was saying, I think the radio show host said something like, so does that mean that if I don't live a good life, I could be reborn as a gnat? And the Dalai Lama said, well, oh no, you have far too much psychophysical energy for that. You could be reborn as 10,000 gnats.
Good answer. Very good, but still not sure. But with that slime mold, it's worth asking, where is the self? Good question.
invisible, and it's like a puppeteer, and it can sort of make it come together as a worm, and it can make it spread apart. But over time, it's like sort of like a shield over top of it.
Yeah, what happened? I don't know. Any more questions?
I'm not familiar with the
Term?
I'm not just really familiar with the term.
Yeah.
I found the explanation with the computer quite clear, but it doesn't mean that one cannot. I mean, a computer cannot be conscious of its programming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that mean that that we also cannot be conscious of our citta?
The body and mind are virtually mechanisms. The citta is the one which pushes them about. Deep in it. The citta is the one that pushes them about. The citta is the one that has power. The citta is the one that has volition, intention, and because it has volition and intention, it creates karma. Only the citta can create karma. Because of that, the citta, when it's got kilesas in it, also creates karma. And the karma it creates depends on the kilesas very largely, because the kilesas make it go and do things. The citta's got power, but it's neutral. Whereas the kilesas are, so to speak, they're biased. And they want this, they want that. They want contentment, they want happiness. They want goodies, good food, want all the things they want. And they push the citta about to try to make the khandhas go and get these things for them. And the kilesas don't care who receives the results. It's the citta that gets the results. That's why they hurt. The kilesas don't care about that. The citta is best described as the one who knows. When it's knowing something else, like we know things in the world, then it becomes vijnana. But the vijnana is a form of the citta, but it's taking on the special function of knowing things in the world. It also has the function, the capacity of volition, intention. Does things with intention. And the intention can be good or bad depending on the kilesas. And because of that we make karma, which is good and bad depending on the kilesas we've got. But the citta, once it gets free of the kilesas, then it no longer commands the khandhas. The khandhas are free and they go their own way. and this is the arahant, in other words. When the person becomes arahant, the citta has gone free from the khandhas, free from the world, and it's gone into completely still states. And then the khandhas will go on operating much in the way that they've been operating before. The only thing is there won't be any evil things in it, because the kilesas have gone. There won't be anything bad or wrong. But they then just go on operating. And if the character was mild and easygoing in the past, he'll be mild and easygoing when it becomes arahant. If he was irascible and angry when he was before he was enlightened, when he's enlightened he'll also be, after that he'll be irascible and angry. But he can use that to teach other people. In other words, he doesn't use it in wrong ways. Because of this, it's extremely difficult to know who's an arahant, because the characters change so much. They're so different. They're different like ordinary people's characters are different.
I've heard that there are cases of arahants actually punching a disciple who was thick-headed to try to get their attention. Now, someone else has said, well, if an enlightened person can punch someone without anger, certainly they can have sex without lust.
What for? I mean, you punch a person to teach him something, but sex doesn't come under that category.
Can get an erection.
Oh, I don't know.
And I was thinking, maybe not. And we want to ask you, but we thought you're tired that day or something like that.
I don't know. I'm not an arahant. I don't know. The lust would go, because that's Kilesas. Lust. There wouldn't be any left, because when the person becomes enlightened, the Kilesas all go, and those things that pushed him in the way of the Kilesas, those must go. But anger is not in itself something that's bad or wrong. It depends on how it's directed, in what way. For example, a person who's doing a practice, and the Kilesas cause them a lot of trouble. They can't get on with the practice. It's well known that they can become angry at the Kilesas, at their own Kilesas. And that anger can give them the energy to overcome the Kilesas. In that case, the anger is quite a good thing. But if the anger is directed outward at someone else, that's another matter. That's not good.
One must do as
Mm.
Can the ideas or the way of life not match this one?
I've never heard of them fighting.
Not fighting in maybe thought ideas.
Oh yes, they may have different ideas. Yes. Oh, it's quite possible. But each will have a good reason why. And probably both of them will be right in their own sphere. In other words, I mean, one person will talk about doing the practice of seeing the body as the four elements. And they say this is a very good method, because maybe he did it himself and he found it was a good method. Another arahant says, oh, that's sort of nonsense, that's no use. You've got to do the breathing practice, and that's the right way of doing it, you see, because the Buddha did it. And of course they're both right, because both of them used that method themselves, and they found it worked. They're not sort of saying it's the only way, although some of them might say it's the only way, that because they did it, they know it was like that. But they can make mistakes. Arahants can make mistakes. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But generally, they don't make much in the way of mistakes about Dhamma. As far as the practice is concerned, there's possibility of them making mistakes, of saying wrong things. This is possible. But the mistakes won't have anything bad behind them. They'll be just sort of mistakes due to just not knowing that. After all, arahants are not strange people. They're not peculiar things. They're just people, and they're the only sane ones too, really.
There are very often the term Ajahn, sankhara, Pañña, and for all four kinds of sadhana. You can say the translation of this term?
First of all, my Pali is not very good. I'm not sure. What was the word?
Ajahn, sankhara, Pañña.
No, it's beyond my Pali. I'm afraid. Do you know what the translation is?
Very difficult. Meaning that each moment you're aware of impermanence and all day life, and to not forget all things is impermanent. And if you are in all four kinds of sadhana, there's a term, the same term.
No, I can't get it clear. I have to see the original, see what the translation is, or the original. Yeah, I can't give an answer to that one. I'm not very good at Pali, you see. I learned some of it, then I forgot it. Maybe.
it's painful in the flesh. I said, oh, it is the flesh, because the flesh belongs to me and I'm not the flesh. And then I open the bone again, I'm not in the bone. So I think, oh, if I'm not concerned, if I'm not that important in this body, I mean, if I is the right place, the citta in the right place here, the body of burden.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Good.
I can do like this in practice, but how can I do like this not only in practice, in daily activity?
Do it many times. First many times in the practice, until they start taking over. It's like one can do a practice there and see something, but it hasn't gone deep enough to be fixed inside. But if you do it many times, then the mind will pick it up at other times when you're not doing the practice, and it'll go more and more into that until it becomes part of one's character. Yes, like habit. Yes, yes. Do it many times. Well, you could pull off the skin somewhere else.